Good morning, all. Welcome to the webinar organized by Energy Management Center Kerala. Today's topic is understanding the limits of electrical savings and cost reduction. Energy Management Center Kerala, most of you may be knowing. Anyway, I will be giving a brief introduction regarding EMC. Energy Management Center Kerala under Department of Power, Government of Kerala, is the state designated agency to Bureau of Energy Efficiency. And we are in the field of energy efficiency from 1996 onwards, and we were constantly conducting awareness programs and various other energy efficiency demonstration projects also in the state. But due to this COVID-19 scenario and the subsequent lockdown, we were forced to shift our training sessions into an online platform. As part of this, we were conducting a series of webinars started from May onwards, and it is still continuing. And this webinar is also that part of that webinar series. And today's speaker is T. Shankaranaran Sir. He was the former regional director of National Productivity Council, Mumbai. He was having an experience in the energy audit and implementation, and he has done n number of energy audits, and he has more than a decade of experience in this field. So he is the best apt person for us, and we are lucky to get him for taking this presentation. So in this presentation, he will be covering the efficiency variations in electrical equipment, efficient capacitor control of utilities, and fuel substitutions, and specific energy variations in electric furnaces. So these are the topics which will be covered in this webinar, and participants can use this chat box in the left side of the screen for posting the queries during the time of presentation itself. In the last of this session, we will be having a Q&A session in which the speaker will be clarifying all your doubts. Now I'm handing over the mic to Shankaranaran Sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. So I will upload your PPT and give you the control so that you can control it from your side. Yes, sir, we can see you. And now I have given the control to you also so that you can control it from your end.
This PPT is in full screen mode?
Yes, sir, full screen mode.
Okay, very good morning to all of you. We will go through the presentation. See, basically, if we see this particular presentation was prepared because NPC being doing energy audits since early 70s. I have joined NPC in 85. Since then, being a government organization, we got a lot of opportunity to do different types of audits. So based on our past experience and based on what currently going on, I have prepared this PPT just to get certain clarification how the energy saving on electricity is addressed, because many a time there is a management view, always potential is there to save, but equipments will have its own design conditions. So as an auditor, we should be clear about what is happening for a particular energy saving measure. So based on that only this slide was prepared. So the coverage for this will be what all the areas we have to cover. When we talk of energy saving areas, it has to start with generation, distribution and end use equipments. When end use equipments are discussed, there are common electrical equipments irrespective of the type of industry. These equipments are used in service sector industry, process industry, engineering industry, and even buildings. So there are certain common electrical equipments. There are certain pure electrical equipment which are industry specific. Then always we have an opportunity for fuel substitution. We can see how the electricity and other energy sources result in cost reduction, because fuel substitution is basically not for energy efficiency improvement. This is basically a cost reduction opportunity. and how the monitoring and reporting is being practiced and what area we need improvements. So the energy saving opportunity has to cover all the three areas: generation, distribution, and end use equipment. Generation, if you see, these are all some of the typical heat rate variation. Thermal power station best can be around 2260 at 38% efficiency. And a little average or which is not that much efficient, it can go up to 3200. Similarly, gas turbine, if you see, when we have to run it in open cycle, the efficiency is very low. Combined cycle gas turbines can have a higher efficiency level. Diesel engines, again today maximum we are getting around 4.2 units per liter of diesel. So that way if we consider this is the heat rate for a diesel engine and the efficiency variation is 31 to 35%. Gas engine and diesel engine except for the fuel change, performance wise diesel engine is little better. Gas engines maximum we are getting up to 3.7 or 3.8 units per meter cube of gas. See why we are putting this particular slide. We have to be clear what is the design aspects in certain generation equipment. In operation, what can be controlled? Because power station, when we are considering, power plant has already decided when the plant is designed, the steam inlet pressure and temperature has been designed. When steam inlet pressure and temperature is designed by the supplier of the power plant, then the opportunity at the field is to only monitor this and to review where the pressure reduction is there or temperature reduction. Similarly, gas turbine inlet temperature, mostly if you see the gas turbine inlet temperatures are 1000 to 1100 degrees. There are design aspects where they are planning to increase the temperature up to 1400 or 1500. Mainly when the gas turbine temperature increases, we need a very good material for the turbine blades. So gas turbine inlet temperature is the guiding factor. Auxiliary power in a thermal power plant, again this is changes based on the size of the plant, because in India we started with 110 megawatt, even 63 megawatt we are having. 63, 110, 210, 500 megawatt, 660 and up to 800. Today we are talking of supercritical boilers. So whenever we are going beyond 500 megawatt, the boiler feed water pump is changed to steam driven pump. Then automatically auxiliary power will reduce by 2%. So auxiliary power, why we are telling, these are all the design strategy made by the manufacturer of power plant. Second, cogeneration. Many industries they use cogeneration. Cogeneration again a back pressure route. We got the maximum benefit because steam is used for the process and power is used within the plant. If surplus is there, it can be exported. Again, cogeneration is having another configuration, extraction condensing. So whenever extraction condensing is there, it gives flexibility for the industry, whether any variation in steam load, accordingly they can run extraction and take more power through the condensing route. So cogen with extraction condensing, we need to review the operating cost. So these are all the field intervention, what can be done in a generation activity. See, today almost PLF is predominant in all the industry, generate power plant, because India today we are surplus in power almost. Very few sections of the country we are having power shortage. Otherwise, even a very good power plant, their PLF it is reduced because of the existing PPA. If the PPA itself is putting a restriction, I am forced to operate the plant at a lower PLF. The moment lower PLF is there, then we have to take care all the other operating parameters. So a normal practice, good practice, the design PG test value is compared with the operating value. Wherever deviations are there, plant level we have to do certain intervention. So here certain heat rate variation is given. pressure can vary, temperature can vary of the main steam. So between a boiler and turbine floor itself, there can be a difference in temperature. And sometimes due to fuel quality, pressure we may not get nearer to the design pressure. So these figures are given for 210 megawatt plant. If the pressure is reduced by 1 kg per centimeter square, heat rate will change by 1.25 kL. Similarly, the temperature variation is there. The kilocalorie variation is around 0.75. So this one we can refer the Mollier chart and get what will be the normal variation when the change in pressure and temperature. Predominantly pressure plays the major role. Then condenser vacuum, this is a problem irrespective of the size of the plant. So any reduction, change in condenser vacuum will again increase the heat rate. Combustion control, again a boiler, how the boiler efficiency we are able to maintain. So 8 kilocalorie will be the addition for 1% excess oxygen is there in the flue gas. Then we have to also review the regeneration, all the HP, LP and IP heaters, how the effectiveness of the heater. Because sometime in an operating practice, if there are certain issues, we may bypass certain things. So one has to check how the regenerator effectiveness compared to the design values. Then economizer and air preheater, again both are heat exchanger. This is gas to water, this is gas to air. Sometimes there may be an issue in the air preheater itself. If we are not able to get the designed preheat temperature, then automatically the overall heat rate will increase. See, these are all the points. Then auxiliary equipment controls as per the part load. See, normally power plant, we have not come up to these problems, but today because of surplus power, most of the units they have to run with a lower PLF. So when PLF is reduced, how the auxiliary system capacity control is there, that has to be reviewed. So for a discussion, we can discuss all these things. But in a power plant, when you wanted to attempt certain changes, it has got its own time. Because many a time we see APH, there are leakages are there, but it is not a small industry where I can stop the plant and repair the APH. So APH correctiveness itself, it will take 1 year or 1.5 years. When the plant goes for annual maintenance, that time one can do certain improvement. Otherwise, we will be able to identify why certain heat rate is increasing. So this is what one of the things we have to think. And the second thing, when you consider the gas engines, today we are not able to operate gas turbines again because of the fuel cost. Most of the gas plants are running at 15% and 18% PLF. Otherwise, gas machine is good. Efficiency wise, we can have better efficiency, operational flexibility, but input cost is prohibitive. So gas turbine operations are limited. Same thing has happened to diesel engine. Because diesel cost is 78 to 80 rupees. So today diesel engine is a luxury. Only we can do it for a backup supply system. Gas engine in India, limited gas engines are there. Otherwise, predominantly we are using gas turbines and diesel engines. So that is about the generation end. This is on the distribution network. So the distribution network, the first challenge is how we are doing loss accounting. So if we wanted to do a clear technical loss accounting, we have to cover losses in the transformer, total length of the network, conductor and cable size, current loading. See, up to these three activities we will be able to get fast. When it comes to current loading, large number of data has to be collected. Then load factor and load loss factor can be considered for calculating. So in a distribution network, up to 11 kV feeder, which we are able to assess the technical loss, that itself is a major breakthrough. Because down the line 11 kV to 440, still getting the information is lot of challenges are there. So starting from 400 kV line up to 11 kV, if we are able to get all the losses, Transmission side, still the loss accounting is better. Distribution side, we need to make. So technical loss in industry, if you go by IEEE standard, maximum it can go up to 6%. Then Central Electricity Authority guideline, if you see utility, technical loss can go up to 15%. Commercial loss is separate issue. Commercial loss is purely administrative matter. Otherwise, technical loss, how far we can reduce. So some of the utility companies, they add the DTR. So if there are 200 kVA DTR, they will add one more parallel DTR so that loading is taken care and the load loss is reduced. Then similarly, some of the utility companies, they consider a low loss DTR. Today, if you go by the BEA star rating, transformers are given star rating based on the loss at 50% load and loss at 100% load. So low loss DTR, because distribution company, huge number of distribution transformers are there. Even a small state can have 30,000, 40,000 transformers. So if so many transformers are there, one can invest on the distribution transformer. When we say investment in a distribution company, investment will not be directly from the distribution company. There are certain schemes they have to consider because the investment required for replacement is high. Conductor replacement, technically it may be a good option, but again we need to have certain specific areas where the opportunities are there for conductor replacement. Feeder power improvement is taken by some of the utility companies. So some utilities, they also prefer a fixed capacitor at the DTR level so that from distribution end, PF is improved. Otherwise, substation and PF improvements are practiced by most of the utilities. At DTR end, one can go for fixed capacitor so that PF is improved. When it comes to industry, if we wanted to change, because industry also technical loss is normally taken what is the billing meter and what is the submeter. All the difference is considered as a technical loss. So we have to again within a plant taking all the cable length and estimating is little tedious task. So some kind of approximation is done. At least in both these cases, like especially industry, we should able to account all the transformer losses, then major feeder losses. So if we wanted to reduce distribution loss within a plant, then we have to go for installing capacitors nearer to the load centers. So again, there are certain guidelines how to put the capacitors. We will also see that. So this is on the technical loss side, how the technical loss is estimated. If we have to reduce technical loss at utility end, at industry end, what activity we have to do. Because if industry, if we wanted to reduce, then capacitor should be nearer to the load and load centers. We can shift some of the capacitors. So the electrical network within the industry, how the demand is utilized. So we normally take under the audit at least 2 years data, how the yearly variation in production and the demand is varied. So then also plant load factor and demand, because some of the states give load factor incentive. Then in certain cases, we need to review the contract demand for two reasons. Whether I am underutilizing the contract because there is a minimum billing clauses there, or sometimes there may be increase in contract demand, because normal industry, if there is an increase in contract demand, immediately there will be a penalty. But some of the government sector organization like port and all, if there is a demand increase is there, utility will allow them because they are being a critical industry. So we have to review based on the site condition, which are all the demand we have to review. This is a case of one of the engineering industry. So we have plotted for 1 year what is the demand variation. So if you go through this plant can operate at 890 kVA up to 1400 kVA. So there is not much variation in the monthly production because this plant is supplying material to the OEM. So their orders are fixed. They have to continuously, constantly give the output same. So these kind of variation if is there, then we have to see what opportunity exists in this plant. Because today with the time of the day tariff, demand charges also changes and energy charges also changes. So demand variation, once we can go through the monthly variation, then we have plotted what is the daily variation. See, daily variation is still difference. It is starting at morning 8:30, it goes maximum up 10:30, then again certain changes. Evening peak hours, they don't run the plant, major equipment. Then again night time it is going. Then after 2:30 or 3:30, it is again dropping. See, these type of load curve clearly indicates the plant is amenable for certain load management. When I am able to reduce my production level between evening peak hours, I can still have a control on my peak demand. So what we are telling, this type of load curve generation was earlier practiced by some of the old industry, like railway used to maintain the substation wise what is the load curve. Utility companies, they used to maintain the load curve. But today slowly we are not generating this. So whenever audit is done, if we are able to generate this for a normal production day, this will also tell how the demand utilization can be optimized. So one, we are telling based on the production requirement and the demand, we can see how the demand monitoring or demand optimization we have to do. Second thing, we have to go for the power factor. So mostly the billing, whatever we are getting billing once in a month, it is taken for 30 days interval or 28 days interval. So billing power factor is basically total kWh divided by kVAH. So they take the monthly average. Why we are putting average? All the industry will not have 100% load factor. Some industry is having load factor of 28%, some are having 48%. Especially engineering network, if you see, certain capacitors are already kept on the line. So I am able to maintain my average power factor. Whereas when the peak load is coming, how my power factor compensation, this has to be reviewed. So this is what required in case of purely an engineering network. When we say engineering network, this is will have a load curve like what we have seen. Engineering network will have so much variation, whereas if it is a process plant, the load variation will be very less. So wherever engineering network we are doing an audit, we need to review what is the billing power factor, what is the peak power factor. If there is a variation in peak power factor, then I need to have additional compensation. Second, today some of the boards, supply companies, they have gone for kVH billing. When kVH billing is there, leading power factor is not acceptable, because when industries are maintaining leading power factor, to certain extent generator can take care of it. If all are maintaining leading power factor, again the generator side they have to reduce the load. So leading power factor is not acceptable today by many of the utility companies. Slowly they are shifting to kVH billing. When kVAH billing is there is no separate column for power factor. Directly whatever is the kVH registered, that will be billed for you. So whoever is shifting to kVH billing, end consumer has to clearly monitor how the PF is maintained. Then some of the states where already kVH billing is done, if there is a leading power factor, incentive component is reduced. So today we have to go for a real-time PF correction wherever kVH billing and leading power is very strictly monitored. This is a condition again to know the peak power factor. So this is again a engineering industry, but only advantage is this engineering industry is almost running like a process plant. All the three shifts they are making production. There is no change in second shift, third shift load. So for this again through the billing meter, for half an hour cycle we can monitor how the kilowatt and kVA is varying. Here if we see the PF at peak time can, or when the load is higher, this is going 0.86 or 0.87, whereas this industry was having average billing per factor is 0.93. That means if you go by the bill data, everything looks good. If we are monitoring exactly for the loading cycle, then we will know what are the additional compensation. So again, industry started, we will go for a APFC panel. See, this is a case of an APFC panel. This is again a 9 MVA load is there. Billing per factor for this plant is 0.97. So when the audit was started, they are told everywhere they got APFC. They got more than 12 or 13 substation. All the substation APFC was there. Still, when we put the power analyzer and started monitoring, hourly basis or half an hour basis, the power factors are going up to 0.88 or 0.9. That means, though APFC is there, APFC is not ensuring that my peak demand or peak power factor is maintained. It is overall taking care of the set point and providing the billing power factor. So, second option is there, sometime an APFC certain failure is there, because everywhere they have provided APFC and PF is good. They thought that systems are working. So when we did the audit, we could find in some of the substations, certain APFC panels are not in. It is all not making, because whatever set point is there, capacitor bank, that's all. There is no other additional capacitors are added or deleted as per the load. So we have to review this. That is why we always tell peak power factor you monitor and check really the APFC is taking care of the peak PF requirement. So for this plant, again the different feeders, what is the demand, what is the existing power factor. So if already APFC is there, why there has to be so much variation in power factor? All panels should maintain 0.95 because APFC is decided for 0.95. So when these variations are monitored, then we can see whether there is a failure in capacitors or certain places they require additional capacitor bank. So additional capacitors required is estimated around 1350 kVAr. Then electrical network kVH billing we have already seen. Earlier we are taking average PF, total kWh by total kVAh. So kVH is again calculated square root of kWh square plus RKVH lag plus RKVH lead square. So now the calculation is for real-time power factor. So RKVH lag, how much industry has taken, RKVH lead, how much it has taken. Based on that, kVAh is calculated, not based on the old total kVAh. So now the kVH billing meters have been replaced. It can monitor what is the kVH lead and lag. So the power factor is decided as a leading power factor if RKVH lead is greater than lag. It is a lagging power factor if RKVH lag is less than the RKVH lead is less than lag. So wherever kVH billing is there, today we are monitoring a true power factor. So whatever earlier displacement power factor we are having, this is what we used to monitor earlier. Today we have to monitor true power factor because the power factor is varied due to harmonics. So there is a distorted power factor and displacement power factor. So true power factor, which is monitored for kVH billing, is basically multiplication of displacement into distorted power factor. So all the kVH billing metering is monitoring true power factor. Then when we are talking of electrical network, we have to see the tariff opportunities, what tariff opportunities we are having. So there are industrial and domestic loads in certain large organizations. When we say the tariff is for the industrial tariff, but when they supply power to their own domestic loads, they recover the cost from employees, but it will be at the domestic cost. So still there will be a gap between industry and domestic tariff. If large number of colonies are supplied, then one can consider what kind of demand side management options they can do. So this is what we have given DSM option in a large colony network. So once you are reducing for a common services energy saving, automatically this will reduce your billing or the cost of energy for the entire industry. See, this is a case, if you go by the energy usage data, daily 80,000 units, 83,000 units they are consuming. But being a colony is very big load, it is having more than 28% is the residential common services. Then there are residential service 20, almost 50% of the load goes towards the colony area. If such a situation arises, sometimes this percentage can change, maybe 10 or 12%. Then one has to consider what is the DSM option we can go for the common services. Again, here we have made a transformer energy requirement as 2.27, because technically once you are energizing the transformer, we have to provide the energy. But anytime when the auditor is writing there is a loss in transformer, sometimes the reports are read by finance people. They think that all the loss should be controlled. So it is better to give a clarification. This is an energy requirement we have to have. Maybe so to some extent I may reduce the I square R loss. So common equipments, this is all up to electrical generation, distribution, and up to the tariff we have covered. Now we will move on to the common equipments which are used. So transformer is common irrespective of the type of the industry. Motors for utilities, again we got air compressor, pumps, fans, chilled water and AC system. Then motors for manufacturing equipment, directly it is connected by the OEM supplied, mostly for CNC, VNC machines, or even in a textile mill, most of the equipments are supplied by the motor manufacturer only. He is attaching the motor along with the equipment. Lighting is common. A lot of changes have taken lighting after LED. Then UPS in inverter loads are also slowly increasing in most of the place because of the data analysis and data requirement. Then industry specific equipment like steel industry, there are melting furnace, it can be an induction, arc or a submerged arc. Submerged arc basically for ferrosilica, ferromanganese manufacturing. Induction arc are predominantly used in most of the secondary steel melting. Then all the engineering industry, they have a heat treatment furnaces, because any machining operation is done, we need to do stress relieving or annealing or hardening. So heat treatment furnace, predominantly heat treatment furnace or resistance heating. Welding machine again a common, or it is specific for certain industry like shipbuilding is there, major load will be on a welding machine. Then caustic soda plant, if we consider, huge rectifiers are there, as well as in the plating industry also rectifiers are there. Casting, rectifier and cellulose is the major load. So these are all some of them specific to the industry. It will not be available in other places. So now when we talk of main electrical equipment, motor has been designed up to transformer has designed up to 99.5% efficiency. Then what as an end user I have to do, or an auditor I should do? Because already my design efficiency is 99.5. Similarly, if you consider motor, high tension motor, today I can go up to 97% efficiency. Lower range, there can be an efficiency drop. All the generator alternators are 96% efficiency, design itself. This is there for a long time. It is not now they have increased the efficiency. For rectifiers, again the efficiency margins or ranges between 92 to 96. All the electrical melting furnaces, if you do the heat balance, it can have 65% efficiency. So this slide we have prepared mainly to make an awareness. Electrical equipment per se, it has got a higher design efficiency. Now during operation we may lose certain efficiency. In that case, how much is the efficiency drop in operation? Lighting again, it is instead of efficiency we are referring efficacy or how much lumens output per watt it can give. So many changes have come in lighting. So transformer, if you see operating efficiency, how much percentage it can drop? Because transformer is the, what we say, it is a capital intensive equipment. It is done during the infrastructure. So suddenly if the audit is finding certain loss, I may not get an opportunity to replace a transformer. But distribution companies, instead of reducing the load, they can reduce the loss in the transformer. Change in load versus efficiency. Most of the industrial transformer, we can get this specific information from the transformer test certificate. Otherwise, in general, if we see the drop in efficiency in transformer is just 0.5 to 1.5%. So this will change depending upon the individual manufacturer and for the rating of the transformer. So design efficiency is higher, operating efficiency, the drop is less. If operating efficiency drop is less, what the auditor can do? Because operating efficiency drop is less purely by the load. This is a typical efficiency of a 1600 kV, 22 kV per 433 volt. So primary ampere is 42, secondary is 2100. Now the transformer manufacturer always give all these details. 25% load, 50%, 75, 100 and 125% load. Transformer is tested for unity power factor as well as for low power factor 0.8. So if you go by the manufacturer information, these transformers can have higher efficiency at 50% load. If the load is increases, there is a difference in efficiency which can go up to 0.7% or 0.4%. So what is this is indicating? As an auditor or as an operating person, if I am having a lesser load in transformer, it is not that I am losing too much of energy. So some places, that is why most of the utility companies, they got a thumb rule. Distribution transformer, the loading will be 50 to 60%. Power transformers loading can be more than 75 to 85%. So once the transformer is having the internal characteristic itself like that, I may not able to have opportunity to always replace a transformer. I may able to account all the transformer losses. So that the auditor has to do, because some industry will have 10 transformers, some will have 50 transformers. Once we put a power analyzer on a daily basis, 24 hours, we can know what is the hourly load variation and hourly loss for each transformer. So loss accounting will be better. We will not show a very high loss in a transformer, because when you say distribution loss is 8%, definitely the finance man will see why the 8%, whether transformer is having inefficient. So for loss accounting, we need to calculate all these things. As far as transformer is concerned, part load operation is not amorphous core. We will come to the certain questions have been put. I will concentrate on that once I cover this session. So this is how it has been done. So we need to have a proper loss accounting. See, this is we have done for a transformer, because every time we are telling theoretically transformer is having low loss. This is taken for a combined cycle power plant. 2 generators, gas turbine and 1 steam turbine is there. Each generator is having a separate transformer 70 MVA. There are 3 70 MVA transformers in operation. No load loss of this 70 MVA is 38 kilowatt. Full load loss is 246 kilowatt. Being a power plant, the loading is maximum 85%. So we did one day monitoring for all the 3 transformers, then estimated what is the transformer loss. So all the 3 transformer put together, load loss plus no load loss, the estimated loss is 15,500 units. Luckily, because this is being a generating station, for each generator there is a generation meters were there. Then at outlet where they are exporting power, there is a feeder meter. So we have taken all the generation meter and the export meter. If we see, the difference is only 11,800 units. Calculated was 15,000. Actual loss was 11,000. And the power plant was handling so much of unit per day. So now if we see for the unit handle, the transformer loss is only 0.34%. That means this is inclusive of both our no load loss and load loss. So per se transformer opportunities are very minimum, but for loss accounting, the auditor has to account the loss. For that, you have to connect the meter at least for 24 hours when the normal load is there in the plant. Then we can estimate the loss so that the distribution loss gap we will be able to reduce. So transformers, if we consolidate loss accounting in the large network, replacement is again a capital cost. So we have to wait for modernization of the plant, then I may do a replacement. Some of the select industries we can go for a smaller transformer when where to be evaluated when non-production period operation. Where we are telling like a small re-rolling mill, you have a 1000 kVA transformer, but the re-rolling mill will not work all the 30 days. They may do rolling operation for 16 days or 18 days. Balance 12 days, the 1000 kVA transformer is operated only for running a small pump and lighting load. So such type of industry, if the audit is done, one can create a smaller kVA transformer which can be operated during the non-production period. This can come in a steel rolling, cold storage, even in a port operation, because there is no continuous ship. Throughout the year, you may handle 40 ships or 50 ships. Then all your equipments are major transformers are loaded. So non-shipping area period, whether we can go for a smaller one. Some of these things have to be evaluated at the time of design stage. If the industry is having fund for investment, then some of the places we can go for a smaller transformer. So this is site specific and unit specific. Then we come to Sarath, we will finish certain questions and go to motor.
Yes, sir. Okay, no problem.
So there are certain questions. Pramod, why low loss transformers are not available in India? We once tried only one manufacturer. Yeah, you are correct, because low loss transformer even now both BE is promoting and Asokem is promoting. There is not much manufacturer in India. Second thing, when there is a damage in the core, we have to get the proper supply. That is why many of them, they are still having certain reservation on amorphous core transformers. Is there a nil non-linear load? Is it possible to? Yes, you can achieve unity power factor when there is no non-linear loads. What other questions they can ask? Then I will go to the motors. Any other questions? Up to this, what we have tried, covered. They are able to hear? Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
So any other questions we can answer, then I will go to next.
Someone is typing, sir.
Acha, they can. Okay. No other questions.
No other questions. No. Okay, sir, we can go.
So then the next utility is motors. Again, when we say motors, some of the industry senior people, they tell we have 200 motors, 300 motors. Why can't we do something in the motor? So again, motor study is required in an audit. That drop in efficiency due to load, this can vary between 2 to 6%. Again, we will see. So there are starting load is there and running load is there, due to which there are higher motor rating is there. Normally the torque requirement is calculated. Then they will add another 20% for the motor. So certain equipment, the starting load may be higher. During running, it may have a lower load. But invariably, the motors may be having a higher rating. then these motors will be operating at a lower load. So the drop in efficiency, the range is given. We can take for a particular motor how the drop in efficiency. And we are again going to international standards, IE2, IE3 and IE4 motors. So we will also see what is the advantage of this. Compared to IE2, the new motors which are coming, these motors will have a flat curve of efficiency. So between 75% load to 100% load, there is no drop in efficiency. Even at a lower load, if the efficiency is dropping, the drop is less. We will see different parameters. So this is a loss we have put just to discuss how the losses can be varied when the motor is replaced or rewound. So this is the case for a friction and windage loss for a 34 kilowatt is 995 watts. Stator copper loss, no load, it is 68, at full load 1150. Rotor loss is 577 watts. Stray losses, again it is estimation based on the approved percentage. So stray loss measurement is very less by the manufacturer. So total loss is around 2892 watts and the efficiency of the motor is 92. See, this figure I have put mainly because many a time we refer when rewinding is done, losses can increase. So when the motor goes for rewinding, which loss will increase? Anybody can type or answer. So when the rewinding is done in a motor, which loss will increase? You can answer. Rotor loss. Okay. Any other? Stator copper loss. Any other? So which losses will increase because of rewinding? Okay. See, basically, if you see motor per se, here cut open is not there. Motor is having a stator. So stator is having a lamination. The stator laminations are stacked and it is varnish impregnated after the winding is done. So there is a friction, windage and core loss is there. Here the friction losses and core loss will be less. Predominantly this is the iron loss in the motor. Stator copper loss at load, no load and rotor. This is purely based on the resistance of the motor. So even if the rewinder is changing certain resistance, this loss cannot increase by 20% or 30% because there will be a marginal variation in the resistance of the winding. Stray loss is just again calculated, it is not measured. So that means some portion of this loss will increase. Major loss increase can come in the iron loss because whenever rewinding is done, entire stator is getting overheated, or before failure also it can get overheated. During removal of the winding also it get overheated. Then I square R loss is then if you see the losses are increased in this. So what we tell, the iron loss increase is there because while manufacturing, varnish is put on the motor, then it is dipped inside the varnish tank for 1.5 hours or 2 hours. When rewinding is done, such things are not happening. Normally, rewinder will make varnishing by brush only. So predominantly the no load loss or the iron loss in the stator, iron loss will increase. Marginally, there will be increase in the stator copper loss because resistance increase will be less. Rotor side, mostly rotor is a aluminum die cast rotor. So rotor if having a problem, rotor bar if it has opened, then it will be again rectified. So rotor loss increase may not predominantly occur because of rewinding. Marginal increase in resistance loss and major increase in the no load loss. So this is why many of the time a good industry practice, you always measure for the new motor what is the no load current and what is the no load loss. This can be compared whenever motor goes for rewinding, then it can be reviewed. Second thing, if rotor is damaged, there can be an air gap issue. If the air gap is increased, then definitely PF also will change. This is a case for a full load efficiency of different motor, IE2, IE3 and IE4. Now if we see for different rating, this is given from 5.5 kilowatt to 45 kilowatt. Lower the range, the efficiency margin between IE2 to IE3, let us take IE4 afterwards you will consider. Here it is around 2%, 2%. When we are going for a higher range, the efficiency margin between IE2 to IE3 is less. So always one has to review which motors we should go for replacement. If the motors which are running for a longer period, they are all good case for replacement. IE4 is a reluctance motor. Today only some of the OEMs are giving. So we have to wait for the overall performance of IE4 and see where we can shift. Otherwise, IE3 can be provided if the motor operating hours are higher. Then again within this motor, how the load wise. If we see for a 7.5 kilowatt motor, full load efficiency is 90%, 75% load also it is maintaining the same. But when the efficiency drops to 50% load, the efficiency drop is around 2%. So this is one advantage of high efficiency motors. Even when we are operating at low load, the drop in efficiency is very less. Again, when we are going for a higher capacity rating, the drop is maintained the same. So most of the high efficiency drives at 50% load, there is an efficiency drop of 2%. Between 75 to 100, there is no efficiency drop. Similarly, all these motors are having different power factor. Why we have put, many a time we take a tongue tester and maintain root 3 VA cos phi. So for a 100 ampere rated motor, if the operating load is only 60 ampere, what power factor we are considering for root 3 VA cos phi? The motor is designed for 0.9 PF. System is maintaining 0.98 PF. So the full load ampere is 100 ampere. I am measuring the operating load is only 60 ampere. What power factor we should take? Is the question is clear? Full load ampere of the motor is 100 ampere. Operating load is only 60 ampere. Now the motor designer has given power factor of 0.9. System power factor is 0.98. For root 3 VA cos phi, which power factor we will consider? Any answers you can type. Or you can open the mic and tell. System power factor. The question is clear to all? Designed power factor. Okay. Any other? Okay. See, normally once if you see, the motor power factor will change as per the load. At the lower load, power factor will be very low. When the load increases, it can come up to the design power factor. So this is what is shown here. The motor is designed for 0.85 PF. 75% load, it is 0.82. When the motor is 50% load, the PF is dropped to 0.74. If it is 30% load, this can go up to 0.5 also. That means whenever we take a tongue tester and multiply it by root 3 VA cos phi, if we are taking the motor design power factor or the system power factor, the calculation is not correct. So we may show there is large saving, but in reality the saving may be very less. So this you could have observed, even when a compressor is going in unload, compressor will take unload power factor may be only 0.3, at load the power factor may be 0.89. So whenever tongue tester current reading is taken and we are measuring the kilowatt, we have to better take the load power factor of the particular motor. See how much variation, 0.85 to 0.74. So this we have to keep it in mind. That is why most of the suppliers will give this data even for 25% load. So if we are having that data, this can be used for exactly estimating what will be the kilowatt reduction. Otherwise, even we have seen some of the equipment suppliers, they measure the current and assume power factor as 0.89, then they will give so much kilowatt saving. So as an energy auditor or energy engineer, you have to review these type of calculations. So this is a case has been given for IE2 to IE3 motor. So the existing 11 kilowatt IE2 motor with 89% efficiency, design efficiency. This was replaced with the IE3 motor of 91.6%. So this particular replacement was done for a engineering industry where the automobile cylinder heads are drilling is done. So it is a multi-drill machine. More than 11 drills are there at a time. So it has to drill the cylinder head. So average duty cycle during for that power is taken. IE2 was taking 5.2 kilowatt. IE3 was taking 4.7. Then the motor loading, if you see, in case of IE2, it is 42%, IE3 39%. See, once you have seen the motor loading, there is an opportunity not to replace this equipment with the same 11 kilowatt. We could have reduced the motor to a 7.5 kilowatt, but some of industry has taken, because they are starting with IE3 motor, they told we will replace with the same capacity. Otherwise, if we go by the loading, this particular operation can be done with a smaller rating of the motor itself. But as per the industry request, same 11 kilowatt replaced. Whenever we are going for IE3, there is an increase in speed, mainly because all the high efficiency drives, the slip is less. When the slip is less, RPM is increasing. So that is what we have monitored here. Originally, the spindle speed was 441. Now it is 446. So spindle speed means it is coming after the motor and the gearbox. So this is the kind of speed variation. Then the energy was observed for certain operations. We have found what is the specific energy originally and after IE3 motor. So for 400 jobs per day they are doing, this installing IE3 motor is giving a payback of 1.79. So this 1.79 can change if the number of jobs processed per day increases. So one has to see, this is the advantage of doing a motor load survey. And the auditor is doing motor load, he can get what is the existing load, where are all opportunities there. So this is a clear case for high efficiency motor as well as resizing the motor. So today, being the first instance, plant might have gone for 11 kilowatt, because 11 kilowatt drive was costing me 48,000 rupees. Instead of that, if I have gone for 7.5 kilowatt, investment also could have been less. Then 7.5 kilowatt loading will be better. In that case, my further efficiency drop will be reduced. So wherever we do this energy efficiency motor replacement, we have to take care all the existing parameters, then we should go. Suddenly somebody will tell after putting IE3 motor, my energy has increased. It can't increase if we are monitoring all the parameters clearly. So this is with respect to LT motors we have seen. As far as industry practice is there, up to 200 kilowatt they can manage with LT. Any load beyond 200, that can be converted into a HT drive. So again, HT drive, if you see, the drop is not there. Motors are designed for 95 to 97% efficiency is there. So this is what the advantage in HT drive, 11 kV drive. So similar one we are having for 3.3 and 6.6. So predominantly high tension motors are having a better efficiency compared to LT motors. So electrical equipment, some places motor replacement options can be done. Motor replacement option is again a function of loading, running hours, and sometime number of rewinding, because the same motor is operated for 15 years. If we have done 2 or 3 rewinding, definitely that will also result in certain additional loss. So that is why the existing loss all are taken. There are certain evaluations have been done how to identify motors for replacement. One is based on the loading, run hours, number of rewinding, and years efficiency level. So for each parameters you can give a value. Then based on the higher weightage motors, it can be replaced. So again, motor replacement is again a capital investment. If more number of motors have to be replaced. So today, if most of you are aware, Energy Efficiency Service Limited is offering National Motor Replacement Program. So if the industry is having 30-40 motors to be replaced, they can have an agreement or MOU with ESL and they can participate in a motor replacement. Because one motor is 50,000, if we wanted to replace 50 motors, the cost is very high. So industry will also argue why we have to invest immediately. So there are certain options available today. One has to explore that. Sharat, slide is not moving. Sharat?
Yes, sir. I will check, sir. I will check. Is it over, sir, or there are more slides, sir?
No, slide is not moving.
I just check, sir. I also need to check. Now it's moving, sir.
Okay. Leave it.
Okay.
Where is the slide pointer?
Now you can see, sir.
Now I can see. Okay. So this is up to the motor. We can take certain questions, then we can go. Any questions? Some Ranjit has asked. See, you have asked about the VFD and the motor loading and efficiency. See, normally when we are considering VFD, you don't require an industry to control the capacity up to 20%. Most of the capacity controls will be 60 to 100% only. Very few applications you will have a very low capacity control. In that case, there can be a reduction. But again, VFD we will discuss what are all the issues coming. Motor we will cover now. If VE motor is used, the advantage is derived only. No, this is not correct. Energy efficient motors are capable of taking care of VFD requirement, because normally when you are running a motor at a lower load, the ventilation is not fully correct. That is why many of the motor manufacturers earlier restrict you don't operate with VFD at low loads. So, but today wherever energy efficient motors are coming, these can take care of the VFD requirement. So that is the advantage. So the next is end-use equipment. So whenever we thought of motors, there has to be a design change in electrical equipment. So this design change we have seen already in the motors. Transformers, not much variation except certain amorphous core transformer which has come. This has resulted in a lower no-load loss. Then similarly, the connected equipment also should have a different high efficiency. So we can have a high efficiency pump, a better compressor or a fan. Then all this equipment will lead to kWh savings. The second one is we have to review the energy efficient capacity control. What kind of the present capacity control? Like we always tell, go for a damper survey and valve survey. Wherever control valve and damper operation is there, one has to see what will be the energy efficient capacity control. Then housekeeping and rational use, this is a management requirement. So this can also, housekeeping can also go to energy saving. So pumps, if you see, pump is one of the major utility. So some of the industries still have bypass control. Bypass control will not save any energy. It is only controlling your process requirement. Throttling and control valve operation is predominant, common. So throttling also will save energy. Third option is, if the capacity requirement is permanently less, one can consider a small pump or trimming the impeller. So these two options will make permanently the capacity reduction for the pump. Then in a multi-stage pump, one can consider stage reduction or providing a blind in one of the stage so that we can operate on a lower head. Application of VFD will be the last stage. What I am telling, any audit we have to explore all these potential, then go for VFD. So already certain questions are VFD, we will discuss that. VFD will be predominantly required, like what we are telling, normally if you put a 500 liters per hour pump, how much will be the variation in industry? The pump is designed for 500 liters per hour. Normally, what will be the variation in industry? I have designed for 500 liters. Normally, industry will vary the flow from 500 liters to up to what level? 30%, yes. See, most of the time the variation, because we can't run in a plant at 10% load and 100% load. So even if there is a variation, the utilities will operate between 70% capacity to 100% capacity. In that case also VFD can consider. So what we are telling, before finalizing VFD, you need to evaluate all these options, then go for VFD. Then static height, when it is very high, then we have to review VFD application, because if you are pumping water to 35 floors, then suddenly you can't reduce the pump by RPM all the very low level, because it has to meet the minimum static head. So this will also put a condition for VFD application in a high head application. Low head application, frictional loss is there, we will get a better saving. Then as an audit, we have to always measure what is the combined efficiency of the motor and pump put together. So hydraulic pump I can measure using a portable ultrasonic flow meter and head. Input side I can measure what is the motor input power. So hydraulic power divided by the motor input power will give me overall combined efficiency of the motor and pump. Normally if we see motor efficiency drop throughout its operation is very marginal. So normally we take consider motor efficiency as per the nameplate. Then you can see what is the combined efficiency, how much it can be improved. See, some of the pumping system combined efficiency can be 30%. Some can go up to 70%. So depending upon the capacity of the pump, we have to see what opportunities are there in a pumping network. See, this is a case was done for a head optimization. During the audit, these details were collected. What is the capacity of the pump, meter cube per hour? How many stages are there, and what is the head, design head for the pump? So this is what the pump design. The operation is requiring only 28 meter cube per hour. Head requirement also 150. So now in this case, I have to do throttling both for flow reduction. Head control will be difficult because it is a 6-stage pump. I may not able to reduce the head. Flow I can reduce by throttling. So here, based on the measurement and other details, the audit has recommended at least one stage in this pump can be provided with a blind. So when we say blind, there is no impeller, it is only a steel disc is there. Then where to put the blind? You can't put on your own choice. Whenever the pump blind has to be provided, we have to consult the pump supplier. So he will tell whether you can remove second stage or third stage. then you provide a blind for that. So with all these things, we have estimated, earlier it was taking 63 kilowatt. It is estimated once they reduce one stage with a blind, it can take 42 kilowatt. So power saving estimated was 21 kilowatt. The actual saving achieved 20.3. Why we are putting this? This plant GM was very dynamic. He told whatever your recommendation, I will try to implement. So he found this recommendation is simple. So he contacted the supplier. Within 3 weeks, they could provide a blind. So this is what the actual savings achieved. Now suddenly somebody will ask, this is for a high pressure system, whether we need suddenly high pressure, what to do? So they are having two pumps, 100% standby is there. One pump, there is a number of stages reduced. Another pump is having full capacity. So whenever the system requires the maximum requirement, I can run the standby unit, which is as per the original design. So these type of measurements we have to do and go closer where are all the opportunities are there. Otherwise, per se, electricity saving is not so easy in a plant. Same, this is for fan control. Fan mostly, if you see, when you are having an inlet damper control, automatically we have saved maximum. Some of the large ID fans, we are having inlet guide vane controls. Wherever outlet dampers are there we need to review what kind of energy loss is there. So both the inlet damper and IGV control will give maximum saving. Then the last stage is VFD application. See, this is again a case for a fresh air supply unit. The industry has put a fresh air supply unit. The motor is already provided with a VFD. So when audit was made, we have made an observation at what all the frequency this VFD fan is operating. So when we took the readings, initially we took, then every week we started taking it. This air handling unit is monthly consuming 68,000 units. Operating hours is only 320 hours in a month. So 2-shift operation. So they are running average 300 hours. The load on air supply unit is 107 kilowatt. When we started monitoring the frequency, we used to monitor every third day. So like that, we are monitoring for 3-4 weeks. Sometime we have seen fan is operated at 48 frequency also. Sometime it is operated at 45, sometime it is 42. That means when the filters are not cleaned properly, though I am having a VFD, I am operating the system at 48 cycles. So then we have decided what is the additional advantage you are having a frequency display in the control panel. You have frequency as the guiding parameter. Whenever frequency increases, because purely cleaned filter, you are getting only 93 kilowatt. When slowly choke up is there, it is going up to 129. Then we gave a guideline, whenever the frequency of ASU operation is 45 cycles, you take it for filter cleaning. So this is only an operational improvement. What we are telling, many a time industry is putting large number of VFD, but the VFD is operated closer to the supply frequency, 49.2, 49.3. That means either the application is not good or the application is not requiring a VFD. So we have to review whenever we are having VFD, what is the real saving margins we got. So the other utility is air compressor. Air compressor, again we are having capacity control. One is on-off control. Whenever air is required, we can switch on the compressor. This is possible only for a smaller compressors up to 15 HP or 20 HP. Beyond that, if we are putting a higher rating motor, the motor is having certain condition. I can't start and stop the motor continuously in an hour. So there are certain guidelines how to control the compressor capacity. So most of the time, sizing of the compressor is as per the air demand, both on volume basis and pressure basis. Installation of smaller compressor for low load operation. This is why we are telling sometime industry will have 3 compressors all the compressors are maintained for the first shift major load. Second shift, when the load is less, they will reduce one compressor. Third shift, again, they will run a larger compressor. So when audit is done, we have to review what is the air demand shift basis, how many number of compressors are in operation, whether third shift operation we can go for a smaller compressor. So these are all will be site specific. One can identify the problem area and provide solution. Then most of the compressors are having unload operation as a capacity control, because once the line pressure has reached 7 kg, automatically compressor will go to unload mode. So during unload also there is no air is compressed, but the power is taken by the motor because it is rotating the compressor component. Reciprocating will take 25% of the load power. Screw will have 35 to 40% load power. Some of the screw is having modulating in. So there also there will be additional no load power will be there. Industries have slowly gone to centrifugal machine. Centrifugal machine can operate between 50 to 100% load. So it is having an inlet guide vane. This can control the flow between 50 to 100. If the demand in the plant is reduces less than 50% of the capacity, the compressor will automatically vent to the air. The moment air is vented, the line pressure will drop. Then again system will come on load. So one criteria, whenever we are using centrifugal compressor, it has to be operated for the base load. Fluctuating load, you can have a screw with VFD or reciprocating. So centrifugal is a high capacity compressor. It has to be operated at full load only. So any part load, any part load operation, there will be a efficiency drop. This is again a large engineering network. More than 7-8 compressors were there. Each department is having a separate compressor station. When we did the audit, we took what is the power consumed for load power, how much it is consuming, unload power, how much it is consuming. If you take for all the compressors put together, unload power is 30% of the total compressor energy. So in these type of situation, we have to see how the compressors can be clubbed together to meet the air load. Otherwise, see, this is again unaccounted, or what we are telling, this will continuously go daily. 1600 units means today's cost it is 16,000 rupees. So purely this is indicating certain places compressor capacities are high. Then you can see what is the opportunity. Then again, leakage is one of the major issue. Within the same plant, the major 3 departments, capacity of the compressor is given, percentage leakage loss. So what can be the leakage percentage allowed? What is the leakage percentage allowed? So this particular case, it is showing 33%, 27, 38. And if you convert it into CFM basis, it is almost equal to 529 CFM. Or out of 3 compressors, 1 compressor is operating only for leakage. So what is the leakage percent allowed? 30%, 20%. Yes, sir, where you are working? Mr. Pramod Das Putte, where you are working? So we are having a figure of 30%, 20%. So really there is no criteria for percentage loss. That means when you are telling 20% you can lose, it is similar to telling 20% money you can lose in the stock market. So once we are telling money you can lose 20%, whether it is agreeable. Yeah, we are telling 20% we can lose, 30% we can lose. But if we can lose 20% in stock market, whether we will agree? Not at all. So when it comes to money, we are telling not at all we will agree. But when we are coming to air, we are telling it can go. See what we are telling, basically we should not give percentage as a controlling parameter, because industry practice, if one chief engineer is changes, all these things will change. What they will justify? Earlier we are having so many number of machines. Today we have increased to 10 machines, so we can't maintain at this loss, so the loss can go high. So what we are telling, maximum how much we can able to reduce. It should be less than decimals. Sorry, less than 10% or 5%. Because sometimes people will ask, no, it is not possible. Everything is possible. Because what we found, like large one of the railway establishment we have done, 3000 CFM they are generating. The loss in the system is only 100 CFM. So now you can calculate what is the percentage. So never give any guideline for percentage. If they are able to reduce, they should be able to reduce maximum. Second thing, for a good compressed air management, you should always have the monitoring of all the compressed air usage point. Because what we have found, any industry, if we ask where are all you are using compressed air, they will tell no, it is starting from vehicle parking up to effluent treatment, we are having air connection. That is all fine. But if you wanted to do a good compressed air management, you first start numbering all the user point. Once you have numbered all the user point, when any leakage is there, you can attempt it, then it can be changed. Mostly the air leakages are occurring at the end connection, not at the main distribution line. So now what we are telling, 90,000 units, 1900 units means it is 20,000 rupees per day. Same management, if you want 20,000 for a project, you have to put a long note sheet why you want 20,000 rupees. But here in air we are losing 20,000 without anybody's permission. So once large compressed air network is there, we have to review what are all the opportunities in compressor network. Sharath, where is that pointer?
You cannot see, sir.
Pointer I am not able to see. Yeah, it has come. Okay. So this is on a melting furnace compressor. Then we will come to the electrical furnaces. So most of the electrical melting equipment, we have to see the capacity utilization. When there is a change in capacity utilization, definitely your specific energy will change. Because furnace per se will not be a bottleneck in most of the industry. Then there are operational delays. That means the coordination between the furnace and the downstream molding section. We have to see what are all the delays happening. Why we are telling, when there is a delay, you have to hold the hot metal in the furnace. Once you are holding the metal, then again you are increasing the energy. So certain operational delays which are controllable, we have to do. How the capacity utilization is done. This is two parameters for the melting furnaces. Heating furnace, if we see, again capacity utilization will be a major challenge, because you construct a large furnace. Once you have constructed a large furnace, the entire refractory is heated. So that means there is a fixed loss in the system. Now this furnace is designed for 5 tons per batch capacity. You make production only 2 tons per batch. Then definitely there is a fixed losses increasing. So what we can do, instead of having 2 tons, you can operate the furnace for 3 days in a week or 2 days in a week, accumulate all the load, then you start the furnace. Again, reheating furnace, we need to see what is the type of insulation made, because these furnace will have more number of cold start. So startup consumption, if we wanted to reduce, these have to be replaced with the ceramic fibers. So today large number of, because electrical furnace mostly Kanthal wire is there, we can have a ceramic fiber insulation. This will reduce your startup consumption as well as outside surface heat loss. So these are all some of the aspects to be checked both in melting and heating furnaces. So this is a case for an induction melting furnace where brass is melted. This plant is having more than 10 or 12 induction furnace. So furnace platform, all are there. So daily they run at least 10 furnace or 11 furnace. So when we did the audit, we took an analysis. When number of heats they are taking lower, what is the specific energy? When the number of heats are increased, how the specific energy is varying. So higher the number of heats, same capacity furnace, you are operating from 200 units to 400 units. That means capacity utilization of the individual furnaces are not good. These type of analysis if you do, then we can decide how many number of furnaces to be operated. Because now all the furnaces are available, all are operated, some are waiting for pouring, some are waiting for charging. Then this is how the energy variation is there. So in most of the melting furnace, whether it is a steel or iron or brass, holding operations will increase energy consumption. Then scrap used, because sometime even a foundry will have a foundry returns. So foundry returns will have large number of mud along with the foundry runner and risers. So when more muddy items are put, slag formation will be higher. Sometime industry will compromise on the cost of the scrap and energy, then number of heats per day. All these things will affect the specific energy consumption. So another one is cellulose. Mainly this is for a caustic plant. We have to review what is the contact resistance. Again, old type rectifiers have been replaced with IGBT rectifiers. Same thing has happened in a welding machine also, which can be designed efficiency can be between 80 to 85. IGBT based welding machines, the no load loss is further reduced. So certain plate type rectifiers, we have to refer to the supplier manual, how the efficiency is dropping between the years of operation. So some of the rectifier companies, they give around 6%, 5 to 6% drop in design efficiency based on the life of operation. Then energy meter installation. We have to see today energy meter, electrical meter installation or what we are telling with the discussion of IoT and Industry 4. Large number of data is collected. Earlier when we started our career, information is less available in industry. Today plenty of data is collected. More number of meters are installed. So once you install more number of meters, we should also utilize the data, because data collection is one task. After collecting the data, how it is being analyzed. Otherwise, if the analytical part is less, then installing more number of meters will not have any advantage. So then energy reporting, whether we are doing with assessment, you are providing all the meter. Still when there is a problem with the meter, the energy reporting daily monitoring is done through assessment. So in such cases, we have to review where we are doing assessment. Again, all the meters added minus the billing meter, if we are putting into transformer and cable loss, please make one star mark. This is only estimated, because the moment report is submitted, all the top management, they will see whether really there is such a loss is happening, because this loss is not calculated. This is the difference between the billing meter and the submeter. In that case, it has to be clearly mentioned in the report. So today we are also having IoT or artificial intelligence or cloud-based metering. So there are service providers, they can provide all the metering to you. Per node they will charge, and they can provide all the information. It is all stored in a cloud-based system. So you can get all your company data regularly. Only thing, whenever you are going for cloud-based system, you have to refine what kind of report you want. Otherwise, if you are going by only service provider information, then you have to have information for controlling the energy loss. So whenever you are going for cloud-based system, review how the reporting is generated, then what report is really useful to you. Then you can add that once you discuss with the service provider. So in metering also, many times we have seen meter is calibrated, or they write a sticker due for next calibration, but meter may not be working, but meter is calibrated. What we are telling, once you are calibrating the meter, you also review the signal, especially digital meter. If the phase sequence is changed between CT and PT, it will not give proper reading. So we have to review the signal, whether whichever meter is having issue, whether all the signals are available. Because when you are having more number of meters, even if the phase sequence is changed, it should get reflected in your monitoring system. Otherwise, one particular load will have only 1/3 energy it will be reporting. So these things we have to review. Then the best is out of 100 meters, which are all the target meters, where we can have a controlling action. So these meters have to be properly monitored. Other meters can give me additional information. Then data analysis and trend analysis has to be done. Mere installing meter will not save energy. Somebody has to work on the data, what we have received, and how the trend is changing as per the plant operation. Then only the metering and having all kind of latest data things. Data acquiring is easy, but analysis part still we are having lot of gaps. If this is done together, then definitely the meter installation will help me lot of saving opportunities. The last one is energy. Electricity is having a substitution. Whenever we say energy substitution, the cost advantage is more. All energy substitution need not give me energy efficiency. Energy substitution is basically for cost advantages. So electrical versus other energy for low temperature application we can review. Some of the industry, they have gone from batch type oil fired billet heating to induction heating. So the electricity cost is 7 rupees, 8 rupees. Compared to losses in a billet heating through furnace oil system, this is giving an advantage. Then as an industry, we have to see what are all the cost of all forms of energy available at the site condition or landed cost. Some industry, they do between vapor absorption and vapor compression. We have to again review the operating cost, because all the energy input cost is varied regularly. So this is a cost for energy price, efficiency, and cost of heat. So if you wanted to generate 1000 kilocalorie heat through a steam route, you got all the energy sources: renewable, steam from coal-fired system, oil-fired system, electricity, and DG power. So the unit cost is given, cost per utility is given, efficiency is considered. So whenever there is a variation in efficiency and the unit price, your cost per kilocalorie or cost per 1000 kilocalorie will change. Especially if you see the first three, agro-based is predominantly is showing a lower cost. Then comes to the coal-based system. Oil is a high cost even today. But this agro-based and coal, this is can become neck to neck when the cost of agro waste is changed, because instead of 3.5 rupees, it is going to 5 rupees. This cost will change. This is the design efficiency of the agro-based system. If the operating efficiency is only 60%, then it may not be attractive. So whenever you are going for fuel substitution, it has to be compared with the efficiency of the system and the cost of heat. Because sometime industry may put after 1 year or 2 year, what we have shown it is reducing the cost, it may not reduce, it may increase the cost. So the cost of heat has to be reviewed whenever change in the unit price. Electricity is again a high cost, diesel is again luxury. So this is same thing is worked out for vapor absorption and vapor compression system. VAM is requiring around 4.5 kg per tier for a 2-stage vapor absorption machine. VCR again compressor input kilowatt is 0.97 kilowatt. Based on that, if you work, again the steam cost when it is changing, the operating cost of VAM also to be reviewed. So up to 1.5 rupees per kg steam, it is all fine advantage. The moment steam cost is going to 1.6, both VAM and VCR, primary cost, fuel cost almost equal. So along with this, you have to add auxiliary. Whenever you are putting vapor absorption machine, your cooling tower load will be doubled. So we have to review this type of cost. So the last one is Every time when we do audit, industry will ask what is the percentage. Don't worry about the percentage saving. Any cost reduction in industry, whether it is a 10 lakh or 1 crore, you are directly contributing to the profit. Because industry also will tell you show more saving. If the auditor is showing 1 crore saving, then immediately industry will not accept all the recommendation. They will tell how to justify the management 1 crore we are losing. Initially, when the audit is started, everybody will tell what is the saving percentage. So finally, you saw absolute saving of 1 crore. Definitely, everybody will think how to justify to the management. So if you are attempting only pure electrical equipment like network system, transformer, distribution system, we may get around 2 to 5% only reduction. Wherever capacity control we are able to attack or remove it to energy efficient capacity control, the saving margin can go up to 15%. Fuel substitution we will get a higher saving margin. So these margins are all only indicator, but what we are telling technically wherever potential is there, auditor has to evaluate. Then once the fuel cost is changed, certain recommendation can be implemented little late. So how to achieve saving, understanding of the system and implementing suitable ENCON measure. See, today if you ask all the energy saving measures, we can put it in 2 slides. But the real challenge is there, which measure will applicable for which type of industry. There only one has to do a detailed analysis. So up to this, I have covered most of the things. I am open to questions. Yeah. Any questions?
Participants are free to ask the questions. If you want to ask it directly, you can unmute your mic and ask it. Or can type in the chat box. Someone is typing, so we can wait for a few minutes.
Okay. Or they can open the mic also. Now almost all are covered. Yeah, throttling. What is the question?
VFD are mostly used for how many kilowatt onwards?
See, VFD you will get it for even for 5 kilowatt you will get VFD. There are smaller pumps which can also operate with VFD. There is no issue because it is an electronic control. Because if you see the large water tube boiler, we used to have eddy current drive. Eddy current drives will be less than 2 kilowatt for coal feeder. So may you can have VFD, there is not an issue. But application you have to be clear for which application you want VFD. Any effects of harmonic on overall energy cost? See, as on date, utility companies are not charging for harmonic, but instead of harmonic, when they have started measuring true power factor, definitely you have to control the harmonics, because if the true power factor you are not maintaining, kVH billing will change, and as well as your energy cost will increase. So directly for harmonics, utility companies are not doing penalization, but the true power factor you have to maintain. That means you have to control the harmonic. Yes.
Participant side, any more questions?
Okay.
Some of them are typing, sir. We can wait. Yeah, we will be providing the recorded videos. So, sir, there is one question.
The consumer has so anyhow, another question, the billing meter, when you are having import and export meter, all those things will be calculated only for the import where you are going to be charged. For that, they will take the power factor values. Of active kVH energy. Do we always install capacitors at load end and also apart from utility side? See, normal general practice is 25 HP and above, you connect capacitor bank nearer to the load. Then whatever is the balance capacitor, you go to APFC. Because if you put all the capacitors in APFC, then definitely your cost investment will increase. So depending upon the industry, if having large number of 1 HP, 2 HP, then you don't worry, put capacitor in the motor control center. If the industry is having large capacity motors, 25 HP, 50 HP, then first correct up to 0.95 at the motor end. Then balance you can put it on APFC panel. Again, as a thumb rule, we take around 30% of the motor rating as a capacitor rating. And next is kWh equal to kVh. What other measures can we take? No, kWh is equivalent to kVh is purely depends upon the load. If your system is having only a resistance load, there is no issue. Always you will maintain. Because load is predominantly inductive load. So definitely there will be a deviation. So you have to go for certain corrections. So the load is finally deciding what is the kVh required. Can you repeat once again? See, like Mr. Varghese was asking, capacitors we can put for each motor for a higher capacity motor, 25 HP and above, you can put capacitor bank directly. Then whatever is the balance, you take it to the APFC panel. Second, for each motor, you can take at least 30% of the motor rating as the capacitor bank rating, KVR rating. Yes. Okay. Which type of cable is used for reducing? See, cable type they are not changing. Normally, what they are doing as an operating practice, if you are having one 3-run RYB of 35 square mm cable is required. Because of the VFD requirement, they may take a double run cable. But specific VFD के लिए what type of cable I have to refer. Otherwise, for harmonic problem as an installation practice, many of them they go for double run cables. Though the load is requiring only single run, they will put parallelly one more cable so that the neutral current is taken care. This is happening in all the most of the railway establishment also. Wherever you are having the reservation counter, UPSs are there. So they have already made a condition. All will have 2-run cables instead of single run. Load wise, single run will take care, but 2-run. Housekeeping energy saving, one is like a lighting system. We should have a proper control for housekeeping. Second, like a compressed air system, if there is air leakages are there, a better housekeeping can reduce. So depending upon the location, you can list out what all the housekeeping you have to do. Another housekeeping, it even a correct monitoring of all the end use. That will also give you a clear picture where the opportunities are there for control. Because what we are telling, you have asked the question, most of the report is prepared in industry today. Who is the end user for the report? All industry is making daily report, monthly report. Who is reading this report? Mr. Ranjit. Who is reading all this report? See, engineers and management, they are only seeing the report and ticking or signing. Finally, the report is prepared, most of the report for your costing man. He is only wanted what is the energy for a particular department, what is the production. Everything is taken to the costing. Management may review because already engineering team is there. So what we are telling, as a good housekeeping, you can also review the energy reporting system in a plant. When we say review, the energy report should give me really controllable area whether the industry is losing or not. So you can review the energy reporting information what is available in the management report system. Like simple, I will tell you got 3 boilers. Management or the report is generated for all the boiler put together. What is the fuel consumed and steam generated. So they will tell average efficiency of the boiler. This average efficiency is okay for the reporting stage, but as an energy man, if you want, you have to see what is the efficiency of boiler A, boiler B, and boiler C. So you can review that also under a good housekeeping and management. So housekeeping, if it is steam system is there, how much is the makeup water you are doing? That means more makeup water you are doing, there is less condensate recovery. So that also will be a good housekeeping. So we can list out housekeeping, different points as per the utility used in industry. Yes. How can we reduce? See, you can't reduce the unloading loss. The unloading is happening because you have put a higher capacity compressor. If you wanted to reduce this loss, then you resize the compressor because you note down the compressor load requirement for all the 24 hours. Then if the compressor is having a higher capacity, you can go for a lower capacity. Then to that extent, unloading will reduce. So whenever the unloading percentage is high, that is a clear indication the compressor capacity is much more than what is required. Okay. See, housekeeping important for condenser, HVAC, boiler tubes and all. Boiler tubes, if you see, you have to monitor the exit flue gas temperature. Start monitoring the flue gas temperature after the cleaning. Then once you progress operating hours, definitely when the temperature will increase, then you give upper limit. So some industry they will tell beyond 240 they will not allow, they will take the boiler tube for cleaning. So you have to decide whether you are referring to a package boiler or a water tube boiler. HVAC system, again you have to go for what is the cooling water temperature you are able to give for the chiller. So if the cooling water temperature there is a variation, definitely it will lead to energy loss. Condenser, again HVAC condenser, you have to see where the condenser is located, whether condenser is really having a heat transfer problem, because if the condenser is blocking or touching the wall itself, there is no air movement if it is an air cooled condenser. Water cooled condenser, we can measure the pressure drop across the condenser as well as the basin cooling water inlet outlet temperature. See, for a large plant doing cable loss, see, basically, technically, what we will say it is an I square R loss. The major challenge is coming how much current loading I am having for each cable that you have to take. That is why you can start with calculating the loss for all the transformers. Then for the main feeders, you can have. Yeah, this point is correct. You can have 3 type of capacitor components. Starting with the major utilities, you can fix the motor rating 50 HP or 25 HP. Then you can have for a group compensation motor control center. Last one is your APFC. So individual compensation you are already considering. Utility, when you are referring, it is for the generating station means that is separate. So you start with individual, then group compensation. So you have to take the reverse order. In reciprocating, if the load unload is continuous, then one can change the pulley ratio to reduce the capacity, but not too much to create. See, this pulley change and all what we are telling, it is all a stopgap arrangement. If you wanted to have a trouble-free network, you better go for a smaller compressor. Because pulley change, you do a pulley change within the company, then if the alignment is not good, then the compressor itself will go fat. So better if you want a smaller one, you take the manufacturer also into confidence, because the pulley contour has to be properly made. Then once you are changing the pulley, alignment has to be checked. Then you can do, otherwise you can better invest for a smaller one compressor. Okay. Reciprocating compressor, we are not telling replace, because industry thought screw compressor is better. Screw compressor is having certain advantage because it is technology wise it is better. Otherwise, you need not replace a reciprocating compressor. As long as it is in service, you will get a minimum energy. There is no hard rule that you have to replace reciprocating. When you are going for screw, then you should take care it is operating at full load only. Yes. Okay. Okay, Sharath.
Yes, I think there are no more questions. So we can conclude this webinar session.
Okay.
And a very big thanks to Shangaran sir for taking this presentation. And also, I thank all the participants who had attended this webinar. And it was a very interactive webinar also. Thank you for making it a great